So good morning, everyone. My name is Victoria Valencia with the City of Gilroy. If you are a Spanish speaker and need an interpreter, we do have an interpreter here who can assist, and we do have listening devices as well over here in the front of the room. So if you need those, let me know. Happy to get started with that. Anyone? Yes. So in 1 moment, we'll need you to open your meeting. Yeah, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to join and participate in today's distributing workshop. While she's getting that set up, just a few housekeeping items. We have restrooms here, just down this hallway, my left to your right. There are also child care services if anyone needs them for children aged 3 and up. And they have snacks over your team. Just at one. All right, so thank you for taking the time to join and participate in today's workshop. City Council voted in February to transition to district elections, and we have a short time to complete the process and receive public input. And this workshop is to both educate about districting, but also to receive your opinions and desires through drawing possible district maps and learning about your communities of interest. For more information listed from Redistricting Partners, she'll be giving a presentation about districting that will help everyone who wants to start drawing maps know how to do so. And we did have printed versions of the maps right over here when you enter, so feel free to grab the full between pencils, markers, and go for you to use as well. And again, just a reminder, restroom down the hall. Interpretation is available for anyone else who needs it. And if you decide later that you want your piece, please come and see me and I'll help you get set up there. And at this time, I'd like to turn this over to Liz Stitt from Redistricting Partners to start our presentation. Thank you. I'm getting right. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here at 9:30 on Saturday. We are here to go over the distributing process. And so what that means, how to spell for you in right time, plays a role in here in the public hearing schedule, traditional principles that we use to draw maps, communities of interest, what they are, how to invite you, obviously how to get involved, and there are many ways you can get involved, and then we'll go with the population, what's next. So districting. Currently, the city is considered at large, so that means voters vote for every city council member. However, the districting process creates election boundaries within the city. So that determines two things: who is eligible to run, they have to live within that election boundary, and then who can vote in that election. And again, you have to live within that election boundary to vote. So there will be 6 different election districts within the city. So the California Voting Rights Act, this was a law that was passed in the early 2000s. It essentially prohibits at-large elections if there's evidence of racially polarized voting. Again, at-large is defined as anything other than a system in which elected officials live in a district. So sometimes I'll hear folks ask, what if we have an election district where we select 3 members or something like that? It has to be one election or one member representing a district. Mm-hmm. And then So a good way of thinking about the California Voting Rights Act is kind of like the spiritual kin to the federal Voting Rights Act. The federal Voting Rights Act is far more expansive and deals with obviously voting in addition to districting or redistricting. The way that the federal Voting Rights Act views the standard of vulnerability is having the ability to draw a majority minority district. So that's the standard of vulnerability. However, under the California Voting Rights Act, it takes that vulnerability and lowers that threshold to be essentially just having the ability to influence the election. So it doesn't have to be over 50%. A protected class can be 20, 30, 40% of a district. So because of that, loads of cities and counties have gone from at-large to districted. So Gilroy is one of many going through this process. And one of the ways that this law gets team is by plaintiffs having the ability to charge legal fees for successful challenges. However, cities do have the ability to cap that fee at about $38,000 as long as we are following the safe harbor provisions, which is what we're doing. So under the safe harbor provisions, we are required to have 5 public hearings. The first 2 are devoted to education and input from the public. So we just wrapped up our first 2 public hearings with the city council. And at the next hearing, we're going to have draft maps. So at the next hearing and the hearings after that, they're all devoted to draft maps. And then, of course, this, even though this map won't go into effect until next year, we still have to make sure that the process is done within 90 days. So there is a pretty quick deadline, which is why this process is going pretty quickly. So the city of Gilroy heard the public and put together 2 public outreach meetings. Obviously, today is the second one. And we wanted to use this as an opportunity really to have a back and forth with the public because it's incredibly difficult to have that in a meeting setting. So having the opportunity to talk with you all and answer your questions, because this can be a very complicated process. So we want to make this simple, understandable, and give you guys tools to participate. So thank you for coming. When you start drawing, just know that there are rules that you need to follow according to state law. So this is the fair map that Rights list criteria. The first criteria here, each district has to be relatively equal in size. So this is the most important one. When I talk about equal in size, I'm talking about census population. So specifically the 2020 census population is what we determine equally populated, and we have to have a deviation of less than 10%. And I'll tell you guys how to calculate that when essentially you're going to use districtor. Then we have to make sure a map is contiguous. So that essentially means that the district is one whole piece and we're not going from one part of the city to another. It needs to be connected. There are different ways to think about contiguity as well. So there's literal contiguity. It means you're looking at it on a map. It's all stretching. It makes sense. And then travel contiguity means that we're able to travel throughout the district without having to leave the district and come back in through a different way. So there are 2 different concepts of travel and contiguity that we're thinking about when we're drawing maps. And then I'm skipping over to maintain communities of interest. We're going to come back to that. And that is we want to make sure the lines are easy to identify. They're easy to understand. If you show a map to a member of the public, and they haven't been participating, but you showed them the map, those lines should be understandable why they were used. So we're looking for things like natural boundaries, like creeks or man-made boundaries, where highways are often very commonly used. Something that makes sense as a separator. And then keep districts compact. So this is the part where we're avoiding those funny looking shapes that people tend to associate with gerrymandering. We're shooting for circles and squares and trying to avoid ribbons. So you can see on the left there, it's a city. This was drawn before the Fair Act came out. They decided to draw a map that used essentially ribbon-like districts. It cut through community, it cut through neighborhoods, and a judge even criticized this. Fast forward to their redistricting after the Fair Maps came out. They decided to go with these far more compact maps. So that's the map on the right. So you could see a huge difference in terms of the compactness. So again, circles and squares. Maintain communities of interest. California is very lucky to have a law where the public is so important in this process because it's not very common throughout the country. So maintaining communities of interest is really where the public comes to shine. So we need to hear from you all in terms of what your community is made up of, what makes you unique. So we can identify where you are and now, so we don't split up your community. So community of interest is a group of people that can live in close proximity, share similar policy and concerns, but benefit from being distributed together. The whole idea is that people are stronger when they're able to advocate with each other, and when they're able to vote with each other. So if we don't know where the community is, if I split your community, you're going to have harder time on advocating for your community. We like to think of communities of interest as building blocks of districts. So it helps us piece together how we shape our districts. Some characteristics include things like shared public policy concerns, obviously, socioeconomic characteristics, housing, so right towards the homeowners are very common, communities of interest, environmental factors, which is redistricted a city that had an area where there was fire risk. They wanted to use that, and it's a community of interest. So again, building blocks of districts. The Voting Rights Act does have what we call protected classes. These are also considered communities of interest. So in California, the very most common protected classes are Latinos, African Americans, and Asian Americans. However, do you want to state while communities of interest may include race, it can't be the predominant factor when we're drawing the boundaries. So we've got to look beyond race. It could include things like language, shared languages, their culture. So there are lots of other factors that we consider when we're drawing. I'd like to conclude this. I'm going to share how expansive communities of interest are. So, of course, it's things like neighborhoods, religious facilities, churches, temples, things like that. Tourism areas, but it could also include things like the media market. So where are you getting your information, like a local, obviously, dispatch, or even neighborhoods have their own newspapers. And then things like languages spoken. So this is not at all, the end of the list. But usually I like to make the argument that people articulate your community of interest, it probably is, unless it's one of these three groups. So under the Fair Maps Act, it specifically prohibits these three groups from being considered a community of interest. So party affiliation, incumbents, and political candidates. And that's probably pretty obvious as to why. So we're trying to avoid incumbent gerrymandering or partisan gerrymandering. So we don't want to get a specific person or party an advantage or disadvantage in this process. And then while this is not prohibited, that similarly minded people who do not share a geographic location, or if they're citywide. So remember, we're trying to keep these communities of interest together. And if they're citywide or if they're not in close proximity, we're not going to be able to maintain them in one district. So when you guys hopefully give testimony about your community of interest, we do like to prep folks with these 3 questions. So does your community have a shared characteristic or bond? What makes you unique? What makes you different from your surrounding areas? Is the community geographic in nature? So as a demographer, we're specifically looking for street names, street boundaries, landmarks that will let us know where your community is. And then how would you describe your community's relationship with the city and its in-house by the city council? So I think that the last meeting I talked about how does this impact school districts? And short answer is it doesn't. Those are 2 different entities. So remember how your community of interest is impacted by the decision made by the city council. How do you get involved? It's so exciting. I love how we can get involved. There are many ways. So if you maybe you're shy, maybe you can't make a public meeting, you can always email your testimony to on the email address, which I have the end of the presentation. So you can email your testimony. Obviously, you are always welcome to give testimony at public hearings. It's very informative. We speak directly to the decision makers, which are the city council members. And of course, you can fill out a community of interest form. So that's on the website that asks those questions that I just went over, and that is some. So we know where your community is. And then, of course, we hope that you draw maps. So things like a community of interest map, but also you have the ability to draw a district and map. So you can draw any map that's like between 1 and 6 districts, obviously 6 being the amount of seats that we are drawing. So, and they're gonna maintain their at-large mayor system as well. So there are 2 different ways you can draw in districted maps. So today, I'm looking at Google Maps. And what you'll do is you'll shoot for what the number says on there. So you just add them up. And it's going to create a relatively accurate map. And then you'll turn it in. You can either turn it into data or take a photo and just email it to the email address on that bigger map. And then what we do on our end is we draw it up in our program and then upload it to the website. So that could be considered as a potential draft map. So you can draw it using a paper map, or you can use Districtr, which I highly recommend. It's a wonderful tool. It was created by researchers, academic researchers who wanted to get the public involved in districting. So this was a tool that was made specifically to be easy to use, to give you things like census data, citizen voting age population data, which is what we use as demographers to draw maps. And I've been doing this for a while. We have uplifted many maps from the public that will have gone on to be selected as the official map used by cities. All of this information, anything about districting in the city of Gilroy will be on this website. And if you have any questions, if you have any comments, specifically we're gonna make some maps very soon. If there's a map you like or you don't like, you're more than welcome to let us know. Districting at cityofgilroy.org. So just real fast, I'm going to go over the different data sets we use. So the 2020 data set is what we use to determine equal population. And then the citizen voting age population, so we call it CNOT, that's what we use to determine if we're following the Federal Voting Rights Act. So each map that you're going to see submitted will have these two different data sets. So again, the 2020 census data is what we use to determine relatively equal population, which is the number one criteria we have to follow, and then citizen voting population. That is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to see questions, and then after we're done with questions, I'll show you guys how to use Districtr. Yeah, I just raised your hand. I'll come to you. Thank you.
Is there anything that can be done at the federal level that was or even student in our name?
Not that I'm aware of.
I will be back. Oh, okay, yeah. My question is, this kind of goes back to the fundamentals, the program itself, your district. If there is, you said there has to be at least one candidate in each district that lives in each district.
Yeah.
What happens if there is not?
So it depends on, city charm and stuff like that. So either there would be, I'm assuming there would be an appointment. So the city council would likely appoint that person to serve, and they would have to live within that district.
Okay, so then just consequently, we're absolutely random in this areas that you want this job. I mean, I'm not sort of three of the plus right now. I'm just kind of thinking, I don't understand how the process works.
Yeah, so the process is that the city council will appoint a position, similar to we have the seat ends up becoming vacant between election. So obviously to identify a willing candidate, somebody the council feels is qualifying, is come to a position. That's their criteria. It's up to the council to evaluate that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. I'll show you guys these district right now. Very easy to use tool for the public to submit testimony. It's naked and very transparent, which is why I'm running to 1 minute. Okay, so this is your Districtr page. There is a Spanish language option up here to learn native from and then scroll down. It has the different fair sex criteria that we use. And then importantly, 2 buttons here. We have the districting option and we have the community of interest mapping option. Down here is the public gallery. So this is where you save your maps, and once it goes to the public gallery, that's considered public testimony. So in that sense where it's immediate, fast, you don't have to worry about emailing into somebody, and we immediately get access to it. And then if you do want to save your map, come back to the later if you want to make changes to it, you can always save it in work in progress. And this is not considered public testimony because we're assuming you're going to come back to it and keep working on it. So let me show you the community if it's found first. So here you see it outlines the city of Gilroy. You can't go without or outside the boundaries. There are 4 buttons up here. You have this hand that allows you to move them out without drawing over or stop. This hand, this brush right here is what you use to draw. So when you pull down the button, the mouse, here would start populating. You can change the brush size. So if you want to draw a whole bunch at the same time, you can. Or if you want to draw one census block at a time, you can. So that's one. So pay attention to the brush size. You can also erase things. So again, just like the brush, you can change the eraser size. And then this effect allows you to hover over a block to see what the population size is.
I'm sorry, that would give you the population of the entire area that you highlighted?
No, just the or just the block that I hover over. But if you do want to see that entire population, you go over to evaluation, and it tells you the total population. So
That's not the highlighted area.
yes. So, and again, this is for a community of interest. So, the population is of interest, but you're not limited like you are when you're drawing districted maps. So if you want to draw a community of interest, let's say it looks something like this, and all you do is name it here and then describe what makes, your community unique, why should be together in a district day. And then, of course, if you want to draw another one, you can draw as many communities of interest as you want, and continue to name it and then describe it. And you can also draw or pinpoint important places so that includes things like parks or religious facilities or schools, very common. You place it on a map and then describe it on why it's important to you to be. Once you are happy with how that looks, you hit save, and then you can either share now or use it in a work in progress and come back to it later. And again, we can't delete that. So if you do have a map that you want deleted or take it down, just email us so we know which map you prefer that you drew. But we can't take them out. And then name your map. So you can name it after your community or you can name it after yourself. And if you don't have to name your community or you don't have to name it, you're going to get a unique ID. So naming it is helpful, but it's not required. And let me give you an example of a community of interest map. Now, you don't have to do a whole bunch of communities of interest. You can just do your community. This person did take the time to create, it looks like, different neighborhoods, pinpoint specific areas. So this is a good example. And you can see they name each one, and each neighborhood has a blurb about it. Okay, so let's draw districted maps. So this is where population matters. You can see immediately there is an ideal line. So when we're trying to get that ideal size of 9,948 people. So we have the same buttons as before. We're just gonna start drawing, and we'll randomly start drawing. Using the criteria to fair amount act requires, you could say whatever. So I'm just going to try to get it as close to well. Okay, so when I get to this population, it's slightly underpopulated, but that's fine. It's a total deviation of 10% to play around with. When I hover over a district, it tells me what the deviation for that specific district is. So it's negative 1.06. When you guys are drawing, and I recommend hit block already drawn districts, so you don't inadvertently draw a grid. So I'm just going to start drawing more. And then we have this deviation. Okay, so now this has a total deviation, or this yellow is just population is 11.4% over the ideal size. So if we were to calculate the total deviation of this map with just these two, we would add the highest deviation or the lowest deviation. So this again 11.4, and then let's just say it's 1%. So that would be 12.4%. So we want to make sure that the map is under 10% deviation. So what I'm going to have to do is delete something out loud, and then obviously add the rest of the map. But that is how you can calculate the ideal for the total population. So again, it's the highest deviation and the lowest deviation absolute value added together. Over here, we have data layers. So you get this option at the other map. This is way more helpful in the district data map. We can break down a population by citizen voting age population. This, I love heat maps. It shows you the density of each protected class and voting group. So with Latinos being a majority in the city, you can see that the Latino CMAP is pretty high density in the middle. And when we look at the other citizen voting age populations, a little more sparse. These demographics are what we look at as demographers, and you get the same ability to look at the populations. And then you can also break down the citizen voting age population by the districts that you draw. So we can see they're not here, and we're able to change the different citizen voting age populations as well. So again, once you are done, you hit share that or work of progress, name it, and it goes directly to the gallery. So you can see people have named in here, and then most of them are named after themselves. So if you want to name it after a theme of the map, something that puts your map apart, you're more than welcome to do that. But I do want to always tell people, once you draw your map, please follow it up with an email or testimony so we know why you drew the map you did, and to just show the support for your map. So it's one thing to submit a map and then it goes to the ether, but we want to make sure we hear out why you think your map should be selected. That is, I use Disregard. Does anyone have any questions about Disregard? And I'll be sticking around for a little bit.
Yeah. Will the site be available online? The presentation for this?
Yes. So there is, I know that this is being recorded, so you'll be able to go back, see the explanations of everything again. Also, the meeting, what was it, on Thursday or Tuesday? That was recorded. This is very similar to the second public hearing. So that was recorded. So if you guys ever have any questions, there's likely a public hearing that probably answered up. Or even always leave the last. Well, so yeah.
So to access, access Districtor, there's a website we go to, and then we have to get a login to get an account or something.
So you don't need a login, which is why I love Districtor. It's you can pretty much just go in and start drawing. And that's one of the reasons why they have the work in progress. So since you don't have an account, you won't be able to save it to an account and come back to it. So it just everything goes into work in progress. For again, everything related to districting, it's going to be on the website. So the website is on, or Districtor, it is on the website. So you can see when you go to submit a map, and then I got Districtor mapping tool, or then it's going to take us to Districtor. But also, if you just type in districtr.org/time/Gilroy, it's going to take you to the same place. But again, you can always just go to the website.
No one's the word, but you have to city of Gilroy.
Gilroy.org/1069/transition to district-based elections. And if you just go to the main page, so easiest thing to do, because I don't even look at my bookmarks and try to save the home web page, City of Gilroy districting process. You can Google that, or the web page that links here is cityofgilroy.org/districting. This website explained the process on how it gets decided, it's ultimately decided on. Good question. So to answer that, the way that the map gets decided on is through the public hearing process. So the city council, they're going to be receiving all the public maps and 3 maps from on, I think, is it April 2nd? And at the April 2nd meeting, they will have a public discussion on which maps they like, which maps they don't like. They're not public. So there's opportunity for the public to make comments. And then they're going to tell us which maps to bring forward at the next meeting and to make changes. So then on the 4th hearing, they will decide, hopefully narrow down the maps to 1 or 2. And then the 5th hearing, they're going to vote. Just a quick date, it's April 7th. April 7th is the next hearing. And the public hearing dates are listed on the website, and they were also listed on the postcard you all received in red.
Will city staff be making a recommendation as to which map maybe was the best? And how's that?
That is, the city council members are the decision makers. So staff and developers were here to support that. What ultimately the decision is amongst the city council, and then of course hearing from the public is very important.
So just so staff will make recommendations on this actually events will provide information and data questions that are asked by council will not be a recommendation.
Questions? I'll stick around if you guys want to come out together. You're more than welcome to. But thank you so much for taking time out on Saturday.
Well, this time I'm right now preparing the here was the audience for that the people on that stage there.
Yeah, so on this page and then also on the City to YouTube page. Yeah, so if you go to the public hearing schedule under each last date, it has a video, staff report, view presentation. Great. Well, thanks, y'all. Very happy you can all participate. They really looking forward to reviewing your labs. And on the next couple of days, they're going to be posting draft maps. So please look out for them. The city council will be reviewing our MS.